Week 6 is upon us, so that means it's time for, of course, power rankings. I did the power rankings video last week as a short just to try it out. Not sure if I like it. I'm going to try it again with just a normal length video this time. But either way, let's go ahead and start. So number 10, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs have not been great the last few weeks, to say the least. Their defense is not good. It is giving up. I think I've heard multiple times now that it's on pace to be statistically the worst defense ever, I guess, like because they're giving up so many yards per play, which that's insanity. The teams below them didn't make sense to put into 10. Like, I still think Kansas City is better than some of the others that would be placed in there. The only one I can think of maybe putting in there that's underneath them would be Cincinnati. I'd start to be sweating a little bit if I was a Chiefs fan because the outlook's looking grim. They are at the bottom of their division right now. I mean, who knows with the Raiders stuff, they'll stay that way, but it's not been looking great, and they might have to actually be concerned about possibly trying to play for their life for the playoffs when it's been basically a shoo-in that they might be in the playoffs and probably the Super Bowl the last few years. So number 9, I have the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns were at the losing end of a shootout with the LA Chargers. And what's kind of odd about all that is the Browns, usually their defense is pretty good. And just last week, they struggled against Minnesota. The game was 14-7, and so it was low scoring and a lot of defense, and this week was just the complete opposite. They're still running the ball incredibly well. Nick Chubb is so damn good. I think they're in a good spot right here, just because of some of their games and like how wonky some of them have been. I definitely think you could make an argument to put them higher, but this just seemed like the spot for them. They will have an interesting matchup this week with the Cardinals. They pretty much have exactly what you need to possibly beat the Cardinals if you can run the ball really well. But we'll see. That should be a good game. Number 8, I put the Green Bay Packers. They put up decent points on the Bengals, but dear God, that game was insanity. It was like the Cardinals Seahawks Thursday night 6-6 tie all over again. Just how no kicker could kick until one could, and that was Mason Crosby to redeem himself after he messed up multiple times. But basically any kicker making anything would be redeeming themselves because both of them missed a lot. It's just insane overtime misses. But either way, Packers are still a good team. They're very injured right now, and they're still playing pretty good. Not as good as maybe we thought they'd be playing coming into the season, but with the injuries they've had, that's not exactly unheard of. It's pretty good despite the injuries. So number 7, you have the Baltimore Ravens. So this is where I had them last week. So the Monday night game, the Ravens looked like they were in a bad spot against the Colts. Like the Colts might actually pull this out and win, but then Lamar Jackson just took the game into his hands and then changed all of that. It just seems like some of these games the Ravens are winning, they're playing really close against opponents that they probably should be beating more soundly, but you could easily just chalk that up to they're a pretty injured football team right now. But the main thing is they're getting those wins and they're still finding a way to win despite struggling. Number 6, you have the winning side of the big shootout, the LA Chargers. So the Chargers, their offense was just moving. I mean, so was the Browns, but Justin Herbert looks really good. Austin Eckler's doing a ton too. So their defense up until this game had been holding some really high-powered offenses to not all that many points. That's kind of why I gave them the edge and why they moved up a lot more than the Browns did. Actually, the Browns were the same, right? Oh, I actually moved the Browns down. Yeah, it felt right. So yeah, looking at the games, like they weren't all high-powered offenses, obviously, but Washington 16 points, Cowboys 20, Chiefs 24, Raiders 14. But yeah, holding some of those offenses to only that many points is pretty good. But then letting up 42 to the Browns is a lot less good. But yeah, it just seems like the sky's the limit with Justin Herbert, especially this is only his second year. So it'll be really exciting to see where he goes and how high that he can really end up going. Number 5, you have the LA Rams. So Stafford took a little while to get going. I know at some point either that game or the game before, he hurt his finger. So it was the finger on his throwing hand, which, you know, when something like that happens, makes a lot of sense that they wouldn't be exactly on. He did eventually get going, though. It just wasn't until the second half. And Seattle's defense is not very good. But at the same time, it was a divisional game, and these NFC West games, a lot of times you expect it to be shootouts, and it's a lot closer and just tougher games. You even saw with the Cardinals 49ers, it was a similar situation where it was just lower scoring, more defensive, and still just rough and ugly. But yeah, Stafford, he didn't need to rely on Cooper Kupp because he could rely on Robert Woods, because that was a monster game from Woods. Especially, he was kind of an afterthought with how well Stafford was working with Kupp, but he laid the smackdown on the Seattle defense. And not to say Kupp wasn't good in that game either, it's just Robert Woods was very good. Number 4, you have the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys offense has been pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if you started hearing Kellen Moore to be possibly hired as head coaches pretty soon. That's basically all the rage, is younger offensive-minded head coaches. I mean, we have got frickin' 3 of them in the NFC West. But also their defense has improved pretty good amount from last year. I mean, it was hard to go much lower, but they definitely got to at least middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher, especially with Trayvon Diggs getting all those interceptions, and then Micah Parsons has been good as well. But this is just at least the defense they needed, a defense that wouldn't let up a touchdown every time, so they can actually put on points, and if they need the time to get going, they'll have it, at least enough to where they're not having to abandon their game plan and just throw and throw and throw because they're just dug into a hole. Number 3, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady threw for 5 touchdowns and 400 yards, something he's never done before in his career. Yes, it's the Dolphins who are really struggling right now, but impressive nonetheless. That offense has so many weapons, it just seems like any one of them could break out for a huge touchdown at any time. So it's hard to put them too much lower. You can make arguments for teams to be higher, like the Rams or even the Cowboys, but they're playing really well right now, and they beat the shit out of the Dolphins, so it felt right to me. Number 2, same spot they were last week, the Arizona Cardinals. They had a tough win against the 49ers. They came with a little bit of a price. They became fairly more injured than they were before entering the game. Max Williams, their tight end, who's been actually integrated pretty well into the passing game, is most likely out for the year. Rodney Hudson, their center, which has been a huge get for them, left the game early. They're still winning games. They got to win a game that was not where they just dominated offensively and put it out of reach of their opponents. They won a tough, hard-fought game that was close the entire time. You know, like even with a backup quarterback, which has really been the Cardinals' Achilles heel the last couple years, they still managed to win. They still managed to actually put up points, even though they were struggling, and their defense really stepped up. They made some amazing 4th down stops. Then number 1, same as last week as well, you have the Buffalo Bills. They are now the number 1 offense and defense for points and points allowed. So I love the Cardinals. This is basically a Cardinals channel, but how do you not have the Bills at number 1 with what they're doing right now? They shut out 2 teams. They are putting up incredible points. After the week 1 disappointing loss to the Steelers, they really haven't, it hasn't been close. Like Bills at Dolphins, Bills 35, Dolphins 0. Washington at Bills, Washington 21, Bills 43. Texans at Bills, Texans 0, Bills 40. Bills at Chiefs, Bills 38, Chiefs 20. Like, that's incredible. It's hard to not put them at number 1, even though they've lost a game and the Cardinals haven't. I had them at number 1 last week because when you have a defense that's doing that and an offense that's basically on pace with the Cardinals when they were the number 1 scoring offense, which they're now at number 4 since they were low scoring last week. But either way, that top spot, I think it should definitely be theirs. Like, record is one thing, but like just what they're doing, they're manhandling these teams, and they finally got a good test for their defense with the Chiefs, and it was still, their defense was still really good. So I think they are completely deserving of that number 1 spot. But all right, that is the top 10 power rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think my picks suck? Do you think that I undervalued some teams? Do you think I overvalued some? Let me know. And be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see some more from me. And either way, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.